Now, friend, pull up a chair and sit back and relax for a minute. Let's talk about the most beloved weatherman in the state of Alabama, and in my opinion, the best weatherman the South has to offer. Well, probably the best in the nation. If you've lived anywhere in Alabama for the last few decades, chances are you already feel like you know this man. His name is James Spann, and around here he's not just the fellow who tells you if it's going to rain tomorrow. To a whole lot of people across the state, he's the calm voice in the middle of the storm. And the story of how he became that voice is about as Alabama as red clay roads in a summer thunderstorm rolling over the hills. James Max Spann was born on June the 6th, 1956 in Huntsville, right up in the Tennessee Valley. Now, Huntsville in the 1950s and 60s was changing fast. The rockets of the space program were being tested nearby at NASA facilities in town, and science and technology were becoming part of the local culture. But James Spann's childhood wasn't especially glamorous. His family struggled financially, and life had its shares of up and downs. What he did have, though, was curiosity, and in Alabama, that curiosity often starts with the sky. If you grow up in the state, you learn real quick that the weather isn't something you talk about politely at church socials. The weather here can turn dangerous in a hurry. And young James paid attention. Storm clouds fascinated him. Most kids are just trying to pass algebra at 16, but Spann was already working in television. In 1973, at just 16 years old, he got a job running a teleprompter and doing camera work at a small television station in Tuscaloosa. The station was WCFT-TV, which later became part of what we know today as WBMA-TV. Now imagine that for a moment. A teenager sitting behind the camera in a local TV station, watching the weathercaster point at a map and talk about cold fronts and thunderstorms. Before long, he started filling in on the weather himself. Not because he had some fancy degree yet, but because he loved it. James eventually decided that if he was going to talk about the weather, he wanted to understand it the right way. So he studied meteorology at Mississippi State University, which has one of the country's well-known broadcast meteorology programs. He later completed the university's broadcast meteorology program, earning professional certification that gave him the scientific credibility to what he was already doing on TV. Over time, he also earned the AMS Certified Broadcast Meteorologist designation from the American Meteorology Society, which is considered one of the most respected certifications in broadcast weather. That meant the guy on TV wasn't just a good storyteller. He knew the science behind the storms. If you've ever seen James Spann on television during a severe weather outbreak, you know the uniform. White shirt, tie, suspenders, and no jacket. And you know as an Alabamian that when James doesn't have his jacket on, something big is about to go down. Now that look wasn't some marketing department idea. It actually started for practical reasons. During long severe weather broadcasts during outbreaks, jackets get hot under those studio lights. James ditched the coat, and without knowing it, he created a type of severe weather alert system for Alabama just by signaling it with his wardrobe. There's also a joke that says if James loosens his tie and takes his suspenders off his shoulders, then you better be right with the Lord, because there's a huge chance you're about to be in a reenactment of the movie Twister. He eventually joined ABC 3340 in Birmingham in 1996, and that's where he became the meteorologist most Alabamians recognize today. But what truly set him apart wasn't the suspenders. It was how he handled tornado coverage. And if you've lived here long enough, you've probably heard the calm, steady voice in the middle of a dangerous night. Take cover now. Get in your safe place. James became well known for his wall-to-wall tornado coverage, sometimes staying on the air for hours at a time as storms moved across the state. He doesn't just say a tornado warning has been issued. He tells you what town it's near, what road it's crossing, where it's headed next, sometimes down to specific neighborhoods. He seems to know every small town in Alabama with great detail, even the little wide spots in the road and the little pig trails that someone may live on. Another long-standing joke in Alabama is he knows almost every dwelling in the state and who lives there and if it's a mobile home or not. No one would bat an eye if they heard him on TV while covering a tornado event saying, "Now this will impact the Crudup community at 9:02 p.m. in 33 seconds. This will be going over Miss Myrtle's single-wide trailer there on Jackson Road, down behind Lula May Ellen's Barbecue and Tackle Shop, which, by the way, on a side note, has the best lemon meringue pie. Now, someone please go down there and knock on Myrtle's door and let her know, because she doesn't have cable and has no cell service where she's living at." That's just how well he knows Alabama, its places, people, and things. It also shows how much he cares. A true professional with skill to pinpoint where the weather is impacting and where it's going. That approach has saved lives, many countless lives. People across Alabama have said many times that they trusted Spann enough to act immediately when he spoke. If you ask most people when they remember James the most clearly, they'll tell you one date that has muddied Alabama history. And that was April the 27th, 2011. That day, Alabama experienced one of the worst tornado outbreaks in American history during the 2011 super outbreak. More than 60 tornadoes struck Alabama, including several violent EF4 and EF5 storms. During that catastrophe, Spann and his team broadcast for nearly 12 straight hours, guiding viewers through a constantly evolving emergency. At one point, a tornado even passed near the television station itself, forcing employees into a hallway for safety while coverage continued. The images and warnings from that broadcast are still remembered across the state, and the country for that matter. Many people later said they survived because they listened to James Spann. James didn't just stop with TV forecast. He became deeply involved in weather education and public safety. He helped promote NOAA weather radios, storm preparedness, and community awareness across Alabama. He's also very active online, sharing weather information through blogs and social media, often answering questions directly from viewers. For a lot of Alabamians, he's the meteorologist they follow every single day. Over the years, Spann has received numerous honors for his work, including Emmy Awards for Broadcast Excellence, recognition from the American Meteorological Society, and the National Weather Association Broadcaster of the Year Award. But the real measure of his reputation isn't a plaque on a wall. It's trust. In a place where tornado sirens are a part of life, the voice people turn to when things get serious is often his. And by all accounts, the man off camera is much the same as the man on camera. He's known for being approachable, active in community outreach, and deeply committed to helping people understand the weather that shapes life here in the Deep South. He and his wife Karen have 2 sons, and Spann has spent much of his career living in central Alabama while serving communities across the entire state. Speaking of his wife, one day as he was on air covering a severe weather event, he realized that his home, where his wife was at the time, was in the direct path of a possible tornado. He walked off camera to call her to warn her. That day their home was impacted and damaged. After contacting his wife, he continued his coverage of the severe weather event, which displayed his professionalism and care for Alabama. Now, folks, if you sit on a porch long enough, anywhere from Muscle Shoals to Mobile, you'll hear people talk about storms they remember. And more often than not, someone will say something like, "Turn on Spann." That tells you everything you need to know. Because in Alabama, when the sky turns green and the wind starts to howl, folks don't want just a forecast. They want someone steady, someone who knows the land, knows the storms, and knows the people listening. And for decades now, that steady voice has belonged to James Spann. Until next time, friends, be blessed.